Thanks for staying with us here on The Real Story. If you're on any sort of device, you'll likely see several ads talking about the southern border. If you've watched the vice presidential or presidential debates, you may have some questions, ideas about what immigrant, documented or undocumented, or refugee populations are like. And you may have had family, friends, or coworkers try to start conversations about sanctuary cities and legal status. It can be a lot. So we're bringing questions, fears, and misconceptions to Maggie Mitchell Salem, someone who's dedicated much of her career to working directly with those who migrate here. And she's now executive director of Integrated Refugee and Immigrant Services, or IRIS, here in Connecticut. Maggie, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So we know immigration has been one of the defining factors for the past few election cycles now. Border crossings were up. Now they're dropping again. People waiting for lottery asylum appointments on apps. And then there's, legal protected status and refugees with so much international strife. There tends to be this tendency, some campaign intention to try and lump all of these groups together as quote unquote illegals or undocumented people. To start off, can you give us a big picture, though, of what Connecticut's makeup looks like here? What are the populations you actually serve in the state?
Sure. So IRIS works across all different types of immigrants. And so what we're probably the best known for are refugees. And these are people who have received asylum status elsewhere, and they have come to Connecticut through a national program that's administered by the State Department in Washington. So this past federal fiscal year, which just ended on Monday, in Connecticut, we resettled 922 refugees between Hartford and New Haven. And they came from countries like Syria, Venezuela, Afghanistan, Congo, Sudan, and also Burma. So that's one group. And then you have people who are humanitarian parolees. That includes Cuban Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans. It also includes Ukrainians. And Haitians have just had their temporary protective status extended. So they're able to remain legally in the country because there is so much strife and unrest and violence in Haiti, and it would be unsafe for them to return. And then the last group are what people think of as undocumented, or some people refer to them as illegals. We think people have documents or don't have documents. And they are often people seeking asylum. And you mentioned the app. And so the administration has been trying to have people apply on the app for asylum before coming to the US. And that is part of what has helped reduce the encounters at the southern border.
Gotcha. And Connecticut does have sanctuary cities. We know this gets thrown around a lot, but can you talk about what those actually look like here in the state?
So New Haven, where I'm sitting right now and where IRIS is headquartered, we're really proud that New Haven is a sanctuary city. And it means safety. It means security. It means that people are treated humanely, that their immigration status does not define how we treat them. And according to some of us, that's very much an American value.
And there has been a lot of talk, immigrants are a drain on the system, or refugees might be getting handouts. IRIS and other agencies, though, you're trying to offer some other perspectives, some tangible benefits. Kind of explain to me the misconception there.
Every wave of immigrant that has come to the United States, going back to the 1800s, has needed some help. They got it from friends, they got it from family. In 1980, when President Carter signed the Bipartisan Refugee Act, the federal government got involved and helped communities across the country be able to welcome newcomers who add to the economy. It is absolutely true. They take jobs that often would go unfilled. They are able to start businesses. They are sending their kids to school, and the kids grow up, and often the second and third generation is where you see actual prosperity and additional contributions to our country. So you start with one population in one generation that, of course, needs a little bit of help. People are coming from incredible conflicts and trauma, displacement for many, many years before even getting here.
Right.
We're giving them that hand up. And then the benefit to us, I mean, the Congressional Budget Office, among others, has pointed out that the US benefits significantly. We're talking billions of dollars over a decade from the impact of immigrants. It's a very real impact. And in Connecticut, the same impact is very, very real and felt in communities throughout the state.
Right. And you mentioned that obviously a lot of these people are coming from really traumatic experiences. Can you share with us some of the human moments that have stuck out to you? Any stories you wish other people kept in mind or that you want to be shared with others?
Sure. I lived in Syria in the 1990s. So I'm particularly struck by the stories of Syrians that come to Connecticut, and they are a significant population that we serve. These are, I've sat at a table with 4 or 5 different families, all of them trying to learn English, trying to help their kids who have been out of school for 3 or more years adjust to school in the US. And we have volunteers and donors who help us provide extra support to them, extra tutoring. There are volunteers that take kids to school, get them enrolled in school, help support our case management staff when we're stretched thin. And so I don't just have a story of the Syrians in need, of moms and dads who are trying to start a new life as they think about loved ones that are still in Syria, that are still in the region, in refugee camps. Help their kids who have seen barrel bombings, who have watched people literally die in front of them, who had lived in tents out in the Jordanian desert or in Lebanon, in cramped, squalid, I have been to the camps in Lebanon, squalid conditions. And they're here now, and they are so grateful. And if it wasn't for our volunteers that do that bit of extra that makes people feel truly at home, truly welcome, it's really a two-way relationship. So
Right.
I love to tell you the individual stories of the people we serve, but it's the people that support us that make family.
Right. And now we have seen, though, an increase in recent years and even more so recent weeks of hate, a problem with rhetoric. Specifically, there was vandalism at the most recent run for refugees. Is there more of a concern now? And is there anything Iris has now done or changed to sort of either counter or prepare for that?
I don't like to counter. I like to say what's true and what's real. Immigrants benefit our country, full stop. We're taking a positive tack. We're at the same time trying to help share stories that are true about the value of immigration. We're also asking the community to share their stories. Send us a video or a blog post or photos of your family's immigrant story. We all too often forget that almost all of us, came here from somewhere else at some point in our family's history. And so we're leaning into that. And the 2025 Run for Refugees on February 9th, shameless self-promotion, we're calling it a run with refugees and all immigrants in solidarity.
Has it been more difficult, though, to try and share that positive message recently with, kind of all the rhetoric we've seen online and unfortunately in person?
There are a lot of loud voices out there. we, I guess, are really fortunate to work with people who are a little bit quieter and who have not only stood by us, but in hearing the challenges that I just relayed about Syrian immigrants, have doubled down on their support and their help, their time, their in-kind donations, actual funding. It is sometimes the tough times are when you find your strongest allies. And I have to just share with you that that's what we found.
And for people, though, who may feel frustrated or tired right now, who want perspective for themselves or their family, what are ways they can either get involved, learn more about current needs, or just seek more information? What would you tell them?
So there's a lot of terrific organizations that can help people sort out what's real and what's not. You can always go to our website, irisct.org, but also the American Immigration Council, the Migration Policy Institute. I'm happy to share these links with you. You can share them online with your viewers. There is so much great work being done to tell the real story. We're just one piece of this. And there's a whole network of organizations across the country and even within Connecticut. The Connecticut Project is doing a great job of telling the story of immigration in Connecticut and its value to the state.
Yeah. And before we go, in our last minute here, I do want to let you talk a little bit about what you're doing to address climate refugees. It's something we're seeing more of now, that level of destruction, nowhere to go. I think it's something on a lot of people's minds, especially after Hurricane Helene wiping out areas which never thought it would happen to them. And even before that, flood victims in rural Connecticut last month. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
That was so horrible what happened in Connecticut. And those communities are still reeling. And that is the story of communities across the world, as well as across the country. In Asheville, for example. Let me share a startling statistic with you. 117 million people in the world are displaced. Of those, 32 million are refugees. The others are internally displaced. They're like when you see a hurricane on the Gulf Coast and people are leaving Florida and going to Texas, or leaving Texas to go to Louisiana or further inland.
Right.
We're seeing this in our country. I would just ask, as we look at those pictures of displacement in Oxford, businesses that are going to take years to recover, if they're able to, communities that are still grieving, that's happening halfway around the world. And if we think about what happens at home and we think about what's happening to others, we find that shared humanity. It's tough for all of us.
Yeah.
And we can help each other.
Well, Maggie, thank you so much. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have, but we really appreciate you coming on, sharing a little bit about the important work IRIS is doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
That does it for us here now on The Real Story. But if you want to watch these segments again, you can head to fox61.com or download the free Fox 61 News app and watch The Real Story every Sunday at 10 a.m. right here on Fox 61 and streaming on Fox 61 Plus. Have a great morning.